Good afternoon to everybody. So at school at the moment, you are busy either with plant hormones or you have started the topic of evolution. But I have found that, and that's what markers have seen across the country, that learners, when they battle in the exams in paper 1, where they don't score marks, is this topic of homeostasis. Learners do not do well in it. There's no reason for you not to do well. And I want to engage with a question paper or former questions from past papers that you can see what it's all about. But before we go into homeostasis, last week we also touched on it, but before we go into that, next week I will be doing here the plant hormones, because quite a number of learners have asked me about plant hormones because they don't understand it that well. Today we want to discuss still human homeostasis. But if you want to view a lesson so long on plant hormones, please, you can visit last year's lessons. If you go to our website, monetlaproject.co.za, and you go to past Saturday school lessons, and you scroll all the way up to last year, 2024, 27 July, make a note of that. Then you can watch the lesson there on plant hormones. We recorded here last year. So I'll be doing a lesson again coming Saturday next week. But you can view that lesson from last year so long. Talking about monetlaproject.co.za, you can go there. If you did not get the notes today of last week, or perhaps you forgot to bring them along, you can go there right now and open last week's notes, because we're working from them again. But I want you to, for the first part of this period, to concentrate on what I've got on the board here. And we will be dealing today especially with the salt balances in the body, and then also the water balances. Now, water balances we know is called osmoregulation, but we will be dealing with that. Now, people, you've got two kidneys. I've drawn one kidney here. You've got one here above your belt at the back, deep in the body, well protected. It's about this size. And then you have another one on the other side. You've got two kidneys. If one of your kidneys fail, can you survive? Yes, you can survive with one kidney, but it's good to have two kidneys. On the other hand, if both kidneys would fail right now, these are vital organs, these small structures. All your blood, every few minutes, all your blood goes through your kidneys to be filtered. So if both of them fail right now, by tomorrow this time, unfortunately, a person would be dead. Your kidneys fulfill a vital function in your body. Why? Because in the blood that comes in, there are substances which are toxic. Those substances will go into the kidneys here, and in the kidneys, they are filtered. It's really like a process of filter paper. All of you have seen at school when they use filter paper and they pour, let's say, a mixture of sand and water through, the filter paper catches up the dirt, and then the filtrate is clean. So in the blood, we don't talk about dirty blood and clean blood. We talk about blood containing some substances which must become part of the urine. Now here is the bladder, which collects your urine. But in the urine, there's substances the body will deposit there that must go out. We basically use our bladder as a rubbish bin. And then we go to the toilet and we get rid of the urine, because the urine contains everything that's toxic for the body, like urea, uric acid, creatinine, all those toxic substances. But the body also makes use of the opportunity here at the kidneys to get rid of what it does not want. Let's say I've taken this morning too much vitamin C. I'm basically overdosing in it. Will it harm my body? No, because once it's in the blood, absorbed into the blood, the kidneys will make sure that whatever is extra must go out, and it deposits it as part of the water in the urine. So the vitamins and the uric acid and all the other stuff is dissolved in that water. So 95% of urine is anyway water. Even if I have extra water in the body, it must go out. And that is the homeostatic role the kidneys play. We are busy with the chapter of homeostasis, And the kidneys are so important, keeping back what we need and releasing what we don't want. It's like a dustbin. What do you put in a dustbin? Let's say you've got extra food at home in the fridge and the food is getting old. So what you do with that food, you go through and you say, right, this we can still use. I need it. We need it. Let's keep it. But this I don't need. It goes to the dustbin. So how does it work here? Let's just recap what you did in grade 11. If you go into the kidneys, you get 1 million of these microscopic structures called nephrons. So you get doctors called nephrologists. They do a kidney biopsy. They remove with a needle from inside the kidney some tissue. Then they look under a microscope, and then they will find a structure that looks like this. But there's 1 million of them in your kidneys. So this is where the filtering process takes place. Please shout out, what do you call this system here of little capillaries? What do you call this? You need to know this. It's from grade 11, the glomerulus. Now this is where the blood comes in. The blood comes in here in a structure. Who of you can remember this structure in comparison to that one there? It is a small arteriole called the afferent arteriole. Arteriole is a small blood vessel. Bring the blood in. A is before E. Efferent. The efferent arteriole takes the blood out again. So the blood goes in. Now notice what happens here. Everything that's there is filtered from the blood. Basically all the water that's there is filtered and it's caught up in this cup-shaped structure here. You don't really need to know the name of the structure like you did in grade 11, but you'll remember the capsule of Bowman. It catches up the water. What is in the water? Good stuff like salts, like vitamins, like glucose, plus the bad stuff like urea, uric acid, and creatinine and some others. The bad stuff that's here that's toxic must go through all along these tubes, go down, go through and become part here of the urine. A little droplet of water containing substances the body does not want. But what the body needs, like water, the water that's moving down in this now, this is now not called blood anymore. The blood has been filtered here by the filter paper called the glomerulus, and it's full of water. And the water runs down here. Now this watery medium is called the what? The filtrate that's now moving down here. What is dissolved in that water? Salts, vitamins, glucose, amino acids, and so on. What is not filtered here? It's like the blood cells that are too big, like red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and so on that are too big. They cannot go through here, through the filter here, because the pores are too small for them. So they stay in the blood together with big protein molecules. Those molecules are so big, they stay in the blood here. They are not filtered. But most of this liquid that comes in here that's called blood ends up being filtered and it moves down here as a filtrate. Now we don't call it blood, we call it what? Look at this word here. Now what has been filtered here that goes through, like filter paper here, is not called blood anymore, it's called what? Filtrate. And in that filtrate, do we find salts? Yes. Salts, vitamin, glucose, all the good stuff with the bad stuff. The bad stuff will go through all the way and become part of the urine. What happens to the useful stuff? We call it a process of what? Going back to the blood here. What? So means again. It must become part of the body. You cannot afford to lose all your water in the body by losing the water through here. The water must go back to the blood because the blood stays in the body. So if I've had too much water to drink, and some of us drink a lot of tea and water and cool drink, then basically we've got too much water in simple language in the body. Then what will the kidneys regulate? Remember the kidneys through these small structures called nephrons, they regulate everything. They say, this person has got too much water in the body. Remember, that's what homeostasis is. Homeostasis is about keeping everything the same. Not too much, not too little inside, despite the changes outside. So now, I've had a lot of water. Now the kidneys here through the nephrons, it's controlled. And it says, all right, this guy, we must not reabsorb so much water. The water must rather go through because he has had so much water to drink and other fluids like tea and so on. So it becomes part, the water becomes part of the. Therefore, you see in wintertime, when you don't sweat, because in summertime you sweat and you dehydrate. But in wintertime, you drink all the tea and so on, you do not sweat, you do not lose water, then your urine is what color in winter? It's watery in color. You've seen that. It's watery in color. We say it's diluted. It's like Oros with a lot of water in. People, you've seen if you take the same amount of Oros in 2 glasses, in the one glass you add a lot of water. So we say now the cool drink is diluted, which means it's watery. Because there's too much water in the body, then it becomes part of the urine. People, do you see how the kidneys control everything in the body? Now, what about salts? Let's talk about salts. Salt concentration, which means, I'm using square brackets, how much salt is in the body. Now, let's say you went to cafeteria. Now, when you had a free period, and by mistake you added too much salt on your chips. But you paid a lot for it, and you enjoy the chips. Yes, it's a bit salty, but it's too salty, but you eat it. And you finish all of that, and now you basically, what's going to be your problem, people? Whenever we talk about homeostasis, we must always identify what's the problem. Now your salt concentration in your blood is too high, because you had too many salts. What will control it? The kidneys. Through which structures? The nephrons. So now, you're in the blood. What pitches up there? The salts that you've eaten. It's in your blood now, because your stomach has digested it. The salt don't even have to be digested really, but it's been absorbed quickly into the blood, and now it circulates in the body. Within a few minutes, it reaches the kidneys. Now, the kidneys must determine, there's a problem here. What is the problem after I've had the salty chips? People, we must always be quick from a question to identify what's the problem. The salt concentration in the blood is now what? Too high. So now the kidney says, I am not going to reabsorb. I am not going to reabsorb the salts. The salts, no, because the salts are too many. So the salts that's in this filtrate must go right through. Let's make it in this white color here. These salts must go right through and become part of the urine. The urine is what is our rubbish bag in the bladder. Whatever we don't need, we take to the rubbish bin. And then we go to the toilet. Are we together? You see the regulatory function of the kidney? The kidneys play a big role in homeostatic control. That's why if your kidneys stop working now, by tomorrow this time, you're dead. So what happens to patients that have total renal failure? Remember, we always use the word, when we talk about the kidneys, we use the word renal. Please take note of the word renal. What happens to a patient now? Can we save a patient like that? Yes, we can. We have a machine in a hospital. In our city, maybe 1 or 2 of them, because they're so expensive. Then you go there 3 times a week, and you spend half a day there at this machine called a dialysis machine. It's the size of half of this desk. And what it does for you is the job of your little kidney. But now your kidneys don't function anymore. I've met many people like that. They cannot go to school, they cannot work, because every second day they must spend half a day in hospital. And then what happens, they take blood from this side, they put it through this dialysis machine, and dialysis machine will do the job of the kidneys for you, filtering the blood, taking out the toxic stuff, and taking away the extra water and salts and so on that you have. and then it goes through the machine, and it comes this side back, filtered, and then back, and so it circulates. After half a day, they say you can go home, come back again on Monday. And so you spend the rest of your life with a dialysis machine. What's the other alternative? You can get a kidney transplant. But then that kidney must be compatible to your body. Normally, it's in the family. So what some people in the family have done, let's say there's two brothers, then one brother would give one kidney for his other brother because the other brother has no kidneys that are functioning. Then each brother has a kidney each. So they've done that in the family. Are you willing to do that for your relatives? Yes. All right, many of you say yes. All right, but now, right, I want to sketch another scenario now. Listen carefully, and people, you must be with me, because in this chapter I want to teach you to reason with yourself. If you develop that ability, you'll do well. If you're lazy to think, you will fail this topic. But it's very easy, there's no problem. So people, please write down what I've written here. Every time you must ask yourself, what is the problem? Now I'm going to take salt as a first point of discussion, and then after that I will discuss water. But let's forget about the water balances for now. Let's just talk about salt concentration. You need to read the question and say, okay, what is the problem? Then you have to ask yourself, according to what I've studied in the book, what detects the problem? Because you can't solve a problem if you're not aware of the problem. There's something in the body that must gauge the salt balances. Is there a hormone involved? Because hormones give messages to happen. And what action will the hormone trigger to bring the salt balances back to normal? So here's the problem that I'm sketching for you in a scenario. They say on a hot day, you play netball or soccer, and you're perspiring, you're sweating. Do we lose salts through our sweat? Yes, we do. Our sweat is salty. So then what's the danger of that? You cannot have too high salt in the body, you'll get a stroke. You cannot have too low salt, you'll get cramps. That's why people get cramp. So these smart cool drinks that people drink, like Powerade and Energade, they contain salts to put back not only liquid, but also the salts you've lost. So here's the problem. I'm putting it like this for you. The salt concentration in the body is too low because I've been running and I've been sweating, I've lost salts. Now what will control it? Which structures in your body? Which organs? The organ is the kidney. And in the kidney there's 1 million what? Nephrons. So the nephrons must now say, we must now reabsorb the salts. The salts that are moving down here, which I made here. So here the salts come in the afferent arteriole with the blood. The salt is in the blood, because blood always contains salt, either too much or too little. But the kidneys must see to it that it's just right. So now the salts are in here. All of the salts are filtered here. Now the nephrons say, wait a minute, we cannot afford for the salts to become part of the urine. No, because the person is shorting salts. So the salts must rather be what? What's this word? Back into the, and the blood stays in the body. And the blood flows here. Look where I drew the blood. Just next to these tubes here. Just next to these tubes. So the salts go back. Salts go back to the blood. But now there's a hormone that comes to play here. And that hormone is released here from these glands called the adrenal gland. So here's the kidney. The kidney is this organ here. But on top of the kidney sits a gland called the adrenal gland. That's the one that releases adrenaline that makes you so strong when you're in a fight or flight situation. But apart from that, the adrenal glands, one on this side and one on the other side of the other kidney, they release a hormone that travels in the blood, and it comes all the way here, and it will come and bring its message here to these tubes here. Now that hormone is called what? It's a messenger with the name of aldosterone. Aldosterone arrives in the blood from the adrenal glands. And it basically tells these tubes here. People, can you remember from grade 11, what do you call these tubes here that run here? Remember, here's the proximal tube, the loop of Henle, and these tubes here are called the what tubes? The distal tubes of these renal tubes here, these nephrons here. So the distal tube will get the instruction from the messenger to say, open up please, like I'm asking, open the door that more learners can come in. The aldosterone stimulates the distal tubes here to become more permeable, to open up for the salts to go back into the blood. The salts must not be lost. It must be, what is the proper word we use? When the salts go back, we say the salts are reabsorbed, which means go back to the blood. Then, am I right? Now there will be less salt here. People, I want you to quickly concentrate. When we do this chapter, you'll see now in the previous question that I've given you last week, that you have open there with you. If more salts are going back to the blood, what will happen to the salt in the urine? Will it not become less? It will become less there in the urine because the salts are rather back in the blood. On the other hand, if I had a lot of salty chips to eat, the salt will go right through because there's too much salt in the body, and then it will go through. Then aldosterone will not be released because the salts must now go through. People, do you see sometimes we need a messenger, and other times the messenger must rather stay away? So when do we need a messenger called aldosterone? When we have a what salt concentration? You must make a note of it. When we have a low salt concentration in the body, in the blood, then aldosterone must give the message for the distal tubes to allow more to go back to the blood, more salts. Now you will have less salts. You must always compare what goes back to the blood and what ends up in the urine. People, will you do that? You don't seem to be convinced. Let me ask you again. Please remember, you can write it down. Compare the salts that are retained in the body. If it's more that are retained, they will be obviously less in the urine. They're not there. There's less learners outside because they're inside the class. They've been retained in class. They're not outside now. Are we together? All right, that is the case with the absorption of salts. So let's see. I've described this problem now for you of playing in the heat in January, playing soccer or netball. Then you lost a lot of salts through sweat. So what was the problem? Say together. Yes, you've got too little salts in the body. In science, we say low salt concentration in the blood. That's the problem. Now, for every problem, there must be something to detect it. What will detect it? Now, what God has done for us, He has put for us here in the afferent arteriole some gauges. They sit there, and you need to know this. There are, please write down the word, there are receptors. There are receptors in the afferent arteriole and in the efferent arteriole, both measuring the salts as they come in and as they come out, doing the calculation for you inside your kidneys to say, but this person has too little salt or too much salt. So where are these receptors that gauge the salt concentration? They sit in the afferent arteriole, there, and in the efferent, and they make the comparison. Are we together? Then they will stimulate. They will send a message to which gland? Look at this gland here. They will send a message to which gland to release a messenger? What is this gland called? To release which messenger there at the top? Aldosterone will cause, look now, the problem we've seen, not enough salts. What detects the problem? We have seen. What is the name of the hormone? You say? Aldosterone. What is the action taken? Aldosterone does what? Can somebody put it in a sentence, please? Raise the hand. I know you can. How will you put it in a sentence? What I explained here, the arrows that you see here for the salts going from here. So what does aldosterone do? Look at my arrow. Put it into words, please. I know you can. If you have to put it in a sentence. What does aldosterone actually cause? Thank you so much. Yes? Of the distal tubules. She says it increases the permeability, which means it tells these tubes, open up. Permeability means allowing for it to come through. Of what? So that what can follow? Who can add to what she says? She says aldosterone causes an increase of permeability of these tubes here, so that what should happen? The people you all know. Yes? So that the salts can move through the tube into the blood. Now that process is called the re means again, absorption, like you said, of the salts. They must not go through. People, I think you understand it. Right, now let's look at water. And I'm going to use this diagram here on this projector that I've got here. So what I had there on the board is exactly what we have here. Now, what is this liquid here, people? This liquid that comes in here, what do you call this liquid that comes in here? What do you call that liquid? People, you're a bit shy, but you can see I'm making it red. It's blood, eh? Blood comes in here, and it's going to be filtered. Please look on the board there. What do you call this structure here? Glomerulus. Now, in the glomerulus, there's a lot of useful substances which will become part of the filtrate. Now, this filtrate will contain water mostly. So I can color this whole section in here, capturing in the capsule of Bowman a filtrate with water together with other useful substances like vitamins and salt and so on. And whatever the body needs will go from this filtrate as it goes down here. If there's too much water, the water can go through, and that water can become part of a substance which we call here at the end. Now we don't call it filtrate anymore. Now we call it what? Urine. And there's some other tubes that come here from the side, collecting ducts that bring from other nephrons as well from the side. And so they all unite to form urine inside the bladder. But now, if you look at this water that goes down there, yes, we spoke about the salts. The salts can move through here back to the blood. And that is under the control, especially here. I must say it also happens here at the loop of Henle, but that's quite a complex mechanism. But under the influence of which hormone will salts move back here? Aldosterone. Now there's another hormone that controls the water balances. If you have too much water in your body, it's dangerous because that water can go over your lungs and your lungs cannot work underwater. And then a person dies. You cannot have too much water. How do you see a patient that's got too much water in his body? You can see his hands are swollen, his face even, feet. You see the old people, I saw it with my own mother, legs swollen. Then the person has water retention. Then they go to the clinic and they give them a tablet. And that tablet, you know what the tablet will do for them in their nephrons of their kidneys? It will cause the water to go right through. The water must not be kept back in the body because the body's got too much water. It must not be reabsorbed back into the blood. Not. Then the water must rather become part of the urine. Now you've got in the urine more what? Look what I've written there. Now you've got more water in the urine. The water must rather be there, not in the body. And I've seen with patients how their feet shrink because of all the water now, but they have to run to the loo all the time because there's more great volumes of urine. Are we together? But on the other hand, I told you homeostasis is all about problem solving. So if you have the problem there of not enough water, let me write here at the top. Let's say you are busy. What do you call the process when you lose too much water? Dehydration. Now, when will you suffer from dehydration? is typically when you play sport, you run, and it's very hot, and you sweat, you quickly lose a lot of water. Babies, you must look after the small children at home. They can easily lose a lot of water by vomiting and through diarrhea. That's why babies die from a runny tummy, because they lose too much water through the diarrhea. If your baby brother or sister is vomiting and also runny tummy, what you need to give them is a lot of water with salts, because they're busy losing salts and water too quickly. They're dehydrating. Now, people, if you're going to have a problem with the water, what is the hormone that controls it? I'm writing it here. ADH controls the water reabsorption. Now, what it does here, where you see this word not, ADH must now say, I'm working against this. I rather want the water from here to go back into the blood. And if it goes back into the blood, there will be what water? There will be less. Now there will be less water in the urine. And you've seen in summertime, when you're dehydrated, you don't even go to the toilet. You don't urinate, and if you do, the urine is yellow in color because it contains little water. Where has the water gone? The water must rather be, what is the word? Reabsorbed. Now once again here at this tube here, people, what did I say on the board that side? What do you call the tubes here? The distal tubes. Now this is where ADH will come and do its job. Where does ADH come from? ADH is under the influence of the structure in the brain called the hypothalamus actually stimulates the pituitary. So people, the hypothalamus, I'm going to write here, the pituitary. It stimulates the pituitary gland to release ADH. The ADH is the messenger that travels specifically for water balances. And it travels here to the distal tubes to basically give the message to say, the water must stay in the body. The person needs water, he's dehydrating. And if you dehydrate, you die from that. So we cannot afford to lose more water by means of urine. The water must rather be, what is the word here? The water must rather be reabsorbed. And ADH causes these tubes to become more permeable to water, so that water can rather go very easily by means of osmosis back there. Now let's apply this knowledge to what we had in the year 2019. Let's say you were matric in the year 2019. Let's look at this question that you've got there as part of your questions at 3.1. Now people, please, I'm giving you this warning. And you can write it down. Half the marks that you are going to get at the end of the year are already in the question paper given to you. Then why do people fail life sciences? Because they don't have the ability to spot the answers already that's given here in the paper. That means you must open your eyes and you must read what it says here. Let's read. And that's why I always encourage you to sit with a pen in the exam room and circle key words. So let's read here. 3.1 of 2019. The diagrams below show the reabsorption of what and what? Salt and water. So it is salt and water. So through the tubules of the nephron, which I've drawn on the board, in the kidney under 3 different conditions. Now, the width, and that's what they tell us here, the width of the arrows indicated in this particular question represents how much salt and water is being reabsorbed and going out. Now I'm going to give you 1 minute to show your friend there, because look at the key here. The key shows for salt a dark color here. Look at the dark arrow, it represents salt. And look at water, it's a gray color here. That's just their key they give in the question paper in this particular case. Now they say, look at how wide the arrow is. The wider the arrow is of this black one here in comparison to this side. People, can all of you see, look where my pen is here. This represents salt or water, according to the question paper. Where my pen is, salt. Now look at this salt here for reabsorption back into the blood here. Here's the blood flowing. Is it broader in size than here? If you look at the width, people, this is not knowledge. I'm asking you to use your eyesight. Just look there. Look, for instance, at diagram 2. Look at the black there of the salt. People, this has got nothing to do with knowledge. It's just, they tell you in the question paper what you must look for. They say you must look for the salt and the water according to the two colors. Then they say, according to this diagram, the wider it is the arrow, the wider the arrow is, the more of that substance is moving. So look at diagram 2. Is this arrow here of the salt thicker than this arrow here? Now tell your friend there, what does that mean in comparison to the salts going out to the urine, in comparison to the salts that are reabsorbed? All right, people, can I make the following statement? And after I've said this statement, I want you to shout out yes or no. I want you to focus on diagram 2. I'm making the following statement. In diagram 2, the person has a shortage of salts, looks like it, because he is keeping back more salts in his blood, which is flowing here. There's the blood. He's keeping the salts rather back, he's reabsorbing it, rather than making it part of the urine. Is my statement true? Yes. I'm so glad so many of you said yes. That was well answered. Because you see the arrows. You see it's wide. A lot of salts rather stay in the blood from the tubes, go back to the blood reabsorption, not becoming part of the urine in the bladder. Now let's look at this number 2 as well. Would you say this person, please discuss with your friend, and then I will get back to, but just discuss privately with your friend. Diagram number 2. Is this typically a diagram showing a person who is dehydrated? Some say yes, some say no. Discuss quickly. And those learners viewing the video, you can reason on it. The notes are attached to the video every time. So learners should pause the video and then download the notes. We are at question 3.1 of these notes. Right. So here's the question. This person in diagram number 2 is, you must not say after I've made the statement, you must say yes or no. This person is dehydrated. No. All these people who said no, they were correct. Well done. Look. Because they can see, look at the water as the grey little arrow. It's narrow there with the reabsorption. More water is rather going where? To the urine, rather going out. So if the person still has water to give out, it means he is not dehydrated. Are we together? All right, now, let's look at these questions that learners had to answer for marks. Let's say you were matric that year. How well would you have done in this question? 3.1.1. Here it is. Name the hormone in a human body that is responsible for controlling the water content. What would you say? So you're scoring a mark. You see how easily the marks come. Then, for the salt content, aldosterone. Aldosterone. There, another mark for you. Now they say at 3.1.2, and the answer was on the board there that I showed. Name the gland that secretes the hormone that controls the salt content. What is that gland called? The adrenal gland. And it releases aldosterone and another hormone or two. There's quite a few other hormones as well, but aldosterone. So far you got 3 out of 3. Well done. Now I want you to discuss with your friend. And people, this is how you prepare yourself for the exam. please see to it that half the time you study. The other half, you must get together in groups. Maybe 4 people or 3 or 5, it's okay. You sit in groups and you take out those past question papers and you discuss them with one another. Because you need to learn how to interact with question papers. A learner who knows the work 100% is not enough if he can't interact with a question paper. So, here comes 3.1.3. I want you to discuss with the person next to you. Which diagram, is it 1, 2, or 3, would represent a person who had eaten salty chips on a hot day without drinking any water? Do not look at the answer at the back page, please. Look at the diagrams and reason with your friend. 3.1.3. What is your option? Please raise the hand. I'm not going to ask your answer, but who of you have come up with the answer? Please raise your hand. At this point in time, who of you have an answer? I just want to see who's got answers. I'm not going to ask you your answer. You have an answer? I see your hands here as well. Right, others? Quickly show one another. Another 20 seconds. Why do you say it's 1, or is it 2, or is it 3? That represents a person who's had salty chips and he did not drink any water, and on top of that he's sweating, losing water. All right, let's vote on this now. Please vote. Who of you say this scenario can be seen in diagram 1? I see no hands. Who of you say diagram 2? Who of you say diagram 3? Can we please applaud everybody? It is diagram 3. Now let's all follow along in case you did not spot it. Look, the blood, sorry, what do we have there coming from the left-hand side? It's the filtrate, which I made in blue in my previous diagram. So there the filtrate containing salts and vitamins and water and everything. It's going down. In this case, the person had a lot of salt to eat with the chips. Do you see how broad this is going to the bladder? It goes into the urine and with the bladder there. And look how little salts he reabsorbs. The salts are not really reabsorbed because it must go out. He's had too many salts to eat, too much. Then you look at the water. The person did not drink any water. Did he reabsorb water from here? People, look here. Did the water go from here to the blood? Is the blood flowing? Are you saying yes? Because look how thin the arrow is that's going to the urine. Shout out. What will be the color of the urine? Yellow or watery? Yellow. Yes, because the water has rather been what? People, you understand it well. But now, that year when I marked paper 1, 2019, I marked this paper for the province. Learners did not do well in 3.1.4. How would you get 5 marks? Because maybe now you got 4 out of 9 so far for this question. People, listen, it's easy. Can I ask you to concentrate, please? They say, now explain your answer. Look here. Explain now your answer to this question. So what does that mean? It means you must talk about what 2 topics? Because what was raised here in 3.1.3, where you now have to explain. What are the 2 topics? People circle here in the question. We're busy talking about salt, and we're talking about another topic, water. So what you must do, please write down my advice. Isolate in a longer question different topics within the paragraph, that you can split it up under 2 headings. Then you answer to the examiner, everything about salt, and then when you're done with the salt, you go to water. Some learners don't know where to start because it's all mixed up in their head. Give yourself structure by answering about the salt and then separate about the water. Because you've identified, look here in the question here, it talks about the salt and then it also talks about that he's taking in no water. So all of you quickly go to the answer which I've included for you on the very last page here and see how it was answered. I'm just going to make it bigger here. Right, people, I think you see it there, you've got the answers there in front of you. Now, what it says there about the salt, it starts off in this memorandum, in this marking guideline here, it starts off talking about the salt and then it continues to discuss the water. So it says the salt, the blood will have what content? High salt content, as you see there. So you always identify the problem. Then which hormone is released? Aldosterone is mentioned there. Aldosterone will cause, in this case, there must be less aldosterone. Look what I'm going to highlight here. Normally aldosterone will promote, but in this case, there must be less aldosterone released because the salts must not be reabsorbed in this case. You must always ask yourself, what must happen to the substance? Must it be thrown away in the urine or must it stay in the body? In this case, less aldosterone must be released so that then more salts will become part of the what? Of the urine. Now you've gained there about 3 marks for the salts. So you can also get 3 marks for the water, which will make it 6, but they gave a maximum of 5. Now, the person, what was the problem again? Quickly look at the question. I said you must always identify the problem and state the problem. The person has what? Less water than normal, Doesn't have enough water. Now, what will stimulate the reabsorption of water? What is the hormone? ADH. It makes the tubes there of the kidney more permeable so that more water is what? And now you will have more or less water in the urine. Less. So it says here, less water will go out with the urine. It's always what stays behind, okay? Now it's not there. Because more learners are in class, there's less outside. Are we together? Let's just look at some quick questions from that year. In this case, 2017. Go to the front page of the document I gave you. Shout out 1.2.3. A hormone which regulates the salt balance in the human body is called what? If you were 2017 matric, you would have scored a mark. 1.2.4. What do you call the maintenance of a constant internal environment in the human body within certain limits? Another mark for you. Look at 1.1.9. There it is. I've circled it in green there. Now this is what they love in life sciences. People, let me ask you. What is the function of the hypothalamus with regards to osmoregulation? It releases which hormone? It stimulates the release of ADH. Now obviously if I have damage in my hypothalamus, some people do have damage there. If I have some tumor growing there and my hypothalamus is impaired, which means there's damage there, I will then not release what? Because I can't produce it, there's damage. It's like if I've hurt my fingers, then I can't hold a pen. It's damaged. If my hypothalamus is damaged, I cannot release ADH. And what will be the consequence for my body? Before we look at the question. If I don't release ADH, what will be the consequence? Remember what ADH does? It promotes water retention. ADH. But now I'm not producing it. So I'll produce what? More urine. I'm not keeping the water back. All the water goes out. So I'm busy dehydrating. I can drink a lot of water, but it's going out because the messenger is not there to tell the kidneys, keep the water. because I've got brain damage. Now look at the options there, 1.1.9. Let's read it together. They say in a certain patient there's a tumor in the hypothalamus of the brain, and in this patient it caused a condition called, it gives you the name there. Now below are some of the patient's symptoms. Dehydration is a symptom. Person, shortage of water now, and the production of what amount of urine? Large amount of urine. So he's busy dehydrating because not through sweat, but through too much urine production. Now, what does it say there? Which one of the following is the most likely effect of this tumor the person has? You quickly decide with your friend. Quickly decide A, B, C, and D, and then we're going to vote on it. People, the word secretion means release of something into the blood. All right, so who of you vote for A? I see no hands. Who of you vote for B? Thank you. Who vote for C? Thank you. D? People, the answer is B. There will be a decreased secretion of ADH because the hypothalamus is damaged, hence the person produces a lot of urine. People, go sort this out. You can do well in homeostasis. Next week, we will do plant hormones. All the best for the week.